Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. Training camp is in full swing, and this is everything that you need to know about days 4 and 5. Make sure you hit the subscribe button because I will be at all the rest of the practices this week and the final practices so we can keep talking all things Giants. Now, before we get to the offensive and defensive highlights, we need to talk a little bit about some injury updates because we have a couple. So let's start with this. Unfortunately, wide receiver Bryce Ford-Wheaton tore his Achilles on Sunday. He is out for the remainder of the 2025 season. I wish him well. He dealt with an ACL a couple years ago. Now this, very unfortunate. Another wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, him and Brian Burns collided at practice on Friday. The good news is they were both okay. Brian Burns was back at practice Sunday, back to practice today. Like nothing happened. He's totally fine, good to go. So that's great. Wan'Dale was okay back at practice on Sunday, and then he ended up knocking his knee against another player's knee, and Dable basically just said that it's a little sore, so today they kept him out of the group 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, and he kind of just did some stuff on the side. I'm not worried about it. I think he'll be totally fine, probably back at practice tomorrow. If not, they'll take advantage of the off day Wednesday, and he'll be back to practice on Thursday, so I'm not really worried about him. Amir Smith-Marset was basically in his spot with the ones today in the slot position, but we'll get to that. Any other injury updates? The only other thing I saw, which Dan Duggan pointed out, was that another wide receiver, Jaquan Felton, was on the side during practice today on the bike, but there was no update or anything from Dable, and he wasn't in the team drills. So we'll see if we get any other updates from him moving forward. But those right now, knock on wood, are the only injury updates that we have. So hopefully now that they put the pads on, things continue to move swimmingly. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the offense, because Sunday was Jackson Dart's best day by far. And he spoke to the media afterwards and he said he feels like the game is finally starting to slow down for him. That, since he's been here every day, it's an influx of information and he's learning, and then he gets the opportunity to do it on the field. And he said that it just feels like it's really starting to click with him. And then everything he's learning, he's able to start now being able to execute, which is great. I also feel like he had a nice day today, too. We're going to get to that in a second because the big focus today was on the run game because they had the pads on. But I will say this, I am feeling better about Jackson Dart as time goes on and he continues to improve. I saw him today get through his reads. I really think that we should be optimistic on him. And what I will say is anyone who's calling him a bust or saying we should have drafted Shedeur Sanders, cut it out. Cut it out. Jackson Dart, throughout every single practice, has gotten 90 to 100% of the reps with the twos. Today, it was 100%. Shedeur Sanders is getting reps with the threes and fours, and maybe even the fives. He's not getting reps with some of the starters. So let's just be done with that, okay? So Jackson Dart has had a good day. Feel like he's coming on. He's getting into the swing of things. And I think I'm getting really excited to see him in preseason because, with the pads coming on, we're starting to see little by little. But today was a big focus on the run game. So the things that I saw were, let's talk about Evan Neal because he's a guy who once the pad came on, everyone's like salivating about what we're going to see from Evan Neal. So in his one-on-ones, he was going against guys like Chauncey Golston, and he did a decent job. Now, he's not going against Dexter Lawrence. So, obviously, I think one step at a time here. He got a couple reps with the ones during the 11-on-11s, but I expect there to be some sort of bigger rotation between him and Greg Van Roten as the practices move forward. I think Evan Neal's going to have to prove that he's worthy of that opportunity, but the biggest takeaway that I have from seeing Evan Neal in pads on the field today is this. He can hold himself upright when he's a guard. There were so many complaints, from myself included, that when he was at tackle, he was seemingly always ended up on the floor. Like, I just don't understand how he was on the ground. While everyone else is standing up, moving the play along around him, he's on the ground. It was a big problem with him, and I don't know what it was, but from what I saw today, that was not the case. So to me, that means that moving to guard was the right move, which I think we all agreed should have been done about a year ago at this point, maybe even earlier. But I think that he's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable there, and I'm really curious to see him when he gets reps with the ones because there hasn't really been a lot of that yet. So, going to continue to watch that. Russell Wilson looked great today. Again, the focus was really on the run game. So, when he had a couple passes, he threw a nice one to Scadaboo. Scadaboo got some reps with the ones. We're going to talk about him in a second. Neighbors had a really nice catch. Amir Smith-Marset was in with the ones. He also had a nice catch, but the big focus was on the run game. So, with that being said, the run blocking, I think, was pretty good, and the run defense was also pretty good. We're going to talk about the defense in a minute, but the offensive line, I'm feeling like, is in a decent shape. John Michael Schmidt's significantly better with the snaps. There were no issues, none that I heard of yesterday and none that I saw today. So that is good. Let's put that behind us because that's not good when you're messing up the snap 4 times in one practice. So that has not happened since. Knock on wood. Let's hope that that continues too. But I will say, overall, the run blocking, I think, did a relatively nice job. There were a couple plays where Singletary and Scadaboo and Tracy were able to get out there and make really nice plays and break through some blocks. But other than that, I feel like, especially knowing that Evan Neal is a better run blocker, I feel like, we're getting there, we're making progress. The other thing that I want to say about the offensive line is James Hudson is light years better than I expected him to be. I don't know if I just had it in my head that because he was a backup with the Browns, he was going to be like Evan Neal level of a tackle. He's going against Kayvon Abdul-Carter and Brian Burns every single snap, and they are giving him a run for his money. And sometimes they win and sometimes he wins. But the fact that he's been able to hold himself up and be able to manage those guys on at least some of the snaps as opposed to none, I am way more impressed than I thought I was going to be. Like, I don't know what your guys' expectation was for James Hudson, but mine was for him to be atrocious. So maybe he's just better than I thought he would be, but I like it and I'll take it. I want to see that continue. So that's what we're going to continue to look out for tomorrow. I expect there obviously to be a big focus continually on the run game, but I think we're going to see a little bit more passing involved as well. But I will say overall, I liked what I saw from the offensive line. I liked what I saw from the quarterbacks. The one thing I wanted to say is that Jackson Dart does know how to slide. He knows how to slide. We saw it today. It was beautiful, a perfectly timed, excellent slide right towards the corner of like the 50-yard line. So, implemented well. I am relieved and happy to know that he knows how to do that. So that's great. Let's go ahead and move along to the defense. Okay, one of the biggest highlights was Art Green, cornerback, who had a one-handed interception off of Jameis Winston. It was an unbelievable play. It's on Madeline Burke's Twitter if you guys want to go check it out. I unfortunately did not get a video, but very, very impressive play. And, Art Green is someone who's been a backup on this team for the last year, maybe even 2 at this point. And, my expectations for someone like him are kind of low, but I will say he did a really nice job in practice today, and I was happy to see that. I didn't see a ton of Nick Jones, who's someone that I have been like laser focused on during practice. But again, they weren't really doing a lot of passing plays today. So I will keep my eyes peeled on those guys, but I really do think that those 2 are going to be the top runners for the cornerbacks to make this roster. And Raheem Lane has been in a lot with the 2s. It's been him and Dane Belton who are like the biggest safeties in with the 2s. So I think that he's definitely going to make this roster, and he's made a couple plays here and there. Let's talk about the run defense because they had some good plays and then they had some not so good plays. What I will say though is that I really think that Cam Scadaboo is going to be an absolute nightmare, like in the best way. The guy is unbelievable. He has caught almost every single pass that has come his way. His contact balance is in full display now that they're starting to tackle a little bit. And the fact that he is able to just kind of like weasel his way through guys, I don't know how he does it. He is a really strong running back. And I think towards the end of the season, it's going to be him and Tracy. And I'm honestly feeling like I'm at the point now I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they cut Singletary. I don't think that they will, but I think that it could be an option because Scadaboo, in my opinion, is significantly better than I thought he was going to be, at least for a rookie at this point. And he did weasel his way into the ones. Him and Russell Wilson had a really nice play today, a little like 5-yard pass to him, and he took it for like probably a 30-40 yard run. Now, when I say they're tackling, they are, but like they're not, because there's a play with Jameis Winston where he ends up deciding to run, and there's guys who are right there who, if it was a game, he would have been tackled probably 15 yards before he stopped running. So they're like tackling, but they're not. So just keep that in mind as we're kind of talking through all of this. And I'm curious to see how that evolves throughout the rest of training camp too, because obviously once you get to the preseason, it's all full steam ahead. Like they're really tackling there. So something to watch throughout the next couple days of practice, and I will report back on that. But I did see some nice plays from the run defense. They were able to get hands on guys like Tyrone Tracy, who had a couple nice plays, Scadaboo, and of course Devin Singletary. So I feel like they made some nice plays. You know, the base defense has really been Kayvon Burns and then Dexter and Roy Robertson Harris in the middle. I've seen a lot of rotations. I have seen plays where Dexter Lawrence is not on the field and you have three edge rushers, and then you have Roy Robertson Harris, or you have Jeremiah Ledbetter has gotten some snaps today with the ones. Darius Alexander has gotten a couple snaps with the ones. There's really been a big rotation there. So it's very interesting. It's very fun to watch because the rotations are so heavy. But it's been interesting, and I think that the biggest thing that I've learned at this point is that I think it's okay and it's fair for us to have a little bit of faith and hope in Shane Bowen, because I have seen different looks from him throughout this entire training camp. And I think that this defense is going to be a little bit more versatile than what we all expected it to be based on having such a bad year last year. So I think, there should be some optimism there. I want to talk about the cornerbacks in a second, but let's just finish on with the run defense for a minute because, Micah McFadden and Bobby O are the starting linebackers. I saw Darius Muasau get a couple snaps in there with the ones, but they've really been focused on the rotation. In my opinion, Muasau is not beating out Bobby O or Micah McFadden for the starting linebacker role. So I don't think anything's going to change there. I think it's Roy Robertson Harris's job to lose next to Dexter Lawrence. We'll see how that continues. Nacho has, of course, been in the rotation. So it's just been a really heavy rotation. I think it's hard right now to really figure out who the starters are going to be. Like, I think that's going to be the base defense, but I also think that if Nacho or Darius Alexander comes on really strong, especially in the run game, then I think that as the season comes closer, we're going to start to see maybe a rotation there, or we'll start to see, Darius Alexander get the bulk of the snaps there as the starter. So it's going to be interesting, but let's go to the corners because that cornerback 2 rotation is not letting up. Every other play, they seem to rotate between Cordell Flott and between Tay Banks. And Cordell Flott had a really nice pass breakup today. And Tay Banks has had a couple throughout camp so far. So I really feel like they are letting them just duke it out and saying, you guys fight for it. Whoever's the best man, the best player, you deserve to win it. But I think ultimately Banks is going to end up winning the job. He was this close to having an interception. So, he's had a couple really nice pass breakups, especially against neighbors. And the fact that, him and even Cordell Flott has done a nice job keeping up with the wide receivers. Like both of them seem for the most part like they can go almost stride for stride with guys like Neighbors and Slayton. The problem is neither of them are great about turning their head around to actually make a play on the ball. So I don't know if that's something that can be improved upon. I'd like to think that with good coaching it could be, and I think that Banks has done a good job this year of being more invested and more involved, I think. Let's see if that continues into the season. But he's had some nice plays so far. But I don't really feel like at this point that he is guaranteed the cornerback 2 role because Flott has been in the rotation so heavy. Like when we look at the safeties, and when you look at cornerback 1, it's Paulson Adebo every single snap with the ones. There is not a single rotation there. When you look at the safeties, no one is coming in for Javon Holland. It's Javon Holland and Nubin, and sometimes Belton is the third safety on the field. Or every once in a while, maybe they give Holland a break and they put in Belton. But there's not like a real rotation there. It's a really that CB2 and then the DL2 that I feel like are the spots, or the DT2 that are the spots that are like kind of up in the air, that are really out for the players to forge their path and force the coaches to say you deserve that spot. So it's going to be interesting. I did kind of think that maybe at this point one player would be leaning more heavily above the other one for the CB2, but I just don't really feel like that right now. I think if you looked at their stats, Banks probably has more pass breakups and maybe a little more snaps, but I feel like it's relatively pretty even. So curious to see how that develops, but we're going to keep watching it. There are still 4 more practices this week. So they have practice Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, off Sunday. Monday is the last practice that is open to the public until the joint practice with the Jets, which is the following week, August 12th and 13th. So we still have plenty of time for them to continue this. And then before you know it, it's going to be preseason and we're actually going to see these guys on the field. And I have to say, I'm getting really, really excited to see Scadaboo and Jackson Dart on the field specifically. Obviously, I've talked my face off about Abdul Carter, so I feel like I don't need to mention him. But those other two rookies, I cannot wait to see more of. So, with that being said, let's round it out here with special teams. Honestly, not a ton of updates here. The biggest one to me is that I have not seen Javon Holland back on the special teams unit. Thank God. I don't ever want to see him anywhere close to being a returner. It's wildly unnecessary. But it's been basically the same group that's been back there. It's been Montrell Washington, Amir Smith Marset, Turbo has been back there a bit, and Dalen Cambry has been back there a little bit. Did I say Montrell Washington? He's been there. But that's really been the group. The last thing is that the Giants put Bryce Ford Wheaton on IR, and they just signed Gunnar Olszewski. So he is someone that we are going to see also on the special teams group, and we're going to see him returning punts and kicks. So we'll stay tuned for that, and I'll have more for you guys tomorrow.